Boys, this week we saw the weirdest Half-Life leak I think I've ever seen. And normally, like, when it came in, I dismissed it as, like, there's no way. Like, we are not reporting on this. We're not reporting on HL3.txt file. Not doing it. This is garbage. Until I realized, like, oh, this is something that was pushed to Dota 2 by Valve. For sure. This is something that exists somewhere inside Valve. And it's the strangest thing. Dan, what did you make of this leak or whatever you want to call it?
I mean, in a lot of ways, it's completely unsurprising to me. It's like, yes, we know that the Valve has, tinkered with Half-Life 3 at various points.
Yeah.
We're fairly sure they've started and stopped and restarted, and it's almost like a Duke Nukem scenario at this point, where they just have probably iterated on it multiple times without ever finding something they really like. They like enough to put out and put the Half-Life name on. So it's like, yeah, there's going to be files floating around called Half-Life whatever, and that they did a lot of that stuff on Source 2, I'm sure. So Source 2 is going to contain some little tidbits of Half-Life. So it wasn't to me a big shocking thing.
I can't remember who in the office asked. I said, what are we going to joke about when Half-Life 3 is finally confirmed? And they immediately said Half-Life 4 confirmed. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's adorable. Yeah, we get this little bit. It looks like, I sat down with one of our engineers, and it looks like it's a piece of a dev tool. Yeah. Probably used for multiple projects. And there are little references to Half-Life things in there, but there's also references to the Xbox. So we know this thing's been built on for a long, or the Xbox 360, pardon me. So we know it's been built on a long time. What I'm more excited about here is thinking about, yeah, we know they've worked on it. We know they might still be working on it. It's been so long. And it got me thinking about how when Half-Life 2 launched, it really kind of subverted a lot of our expectations of what that was going to be. We appear in a world that's very different from the one at the end of Half-Life 1. We get it boxed with Portal, something we never thought we'd get at all. How would Half-Life 3 surprise us now? Like, if Half-Life 3 were revealed, instead of just taking off where Episode 2 let it off, would they even bother anymore to tell that part of the story? Or do you jump and do something completely different?
You can't end Episode 2 the way you do and not address that in any capacity.
Well, I'm saying not address, but what if it happens in the aftermath of that, as opposed to what happens?
Sure, and I don't think it's going to be like, okay, they stand up and they continue right from there. I think it's going to be very different. Whatever it is, because it must have changed. Whatever Half-Life 3 is must have changed. This amount of time, do you just go straight back to what you were doing, or do you try to innovate and do interesting new things?
I expect that what they would do, if they ever decide, yes, we're going to put out Half-Life 3, which I'm not convinced they have.
I am the same way. I don't think that game is ever coming out.
But if they ever decide they're going to do that, I think they're going to make a short Half-Life 2 Episode 3 that bridges the gap.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I think they would probably wrap up that story and then
Half-Life 3 itself would be a different thing.
Right.
So I think whatever portal connections they've been setting up.
If they decide that's a good idea.
Yeah.
See, I think I would not make an Episode 3. I would jump maybe years ahead from that point. I'd start in maybe even a Gordon-less story that just goes off, takes, drops the crowbar Jesus mantle and picks up with people maybe we've never met before.
I don't think
tied into this world. And
I don't think you can have Half-Life without Gordon Freeman.
Do you not?
That classic, memorable character, Gordon Freeman.
I feel like I'd be great without him. I mean, I love Gordon. I don't want to besmirch him, but I mean, just jumping off in a whole new direction. I'm not saying widening it. Don't fool us.
Yeah.
Don't put Gordon on the box. Just give me that Lambda and jump right in.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking earlier about what if there was a Half-Life game without Gordon, and I think that to Dan's point, you do need Gordon involved. And I would love if Gordon became an Alex kind of character, where if he was your mentor, if you were in the rebellion and a student of his, or his protege or something like that, right? Some connection to Gordon, working with him, then you can personify that guy. You can have a faceless, voiceless protagonist interacting with this person in this world.
I don't see the point, honestly. Gordon is the ultimate blank slate. He is the vessel for us to inhabit. That's why he's mute. That's why he doesn't have any real personality except what we have kind of assigned to him. There's no reason to replace that, because he is the kind of the ideal person for us to inhabit in a game.
But you can assign anything you want to Gordon Freeman. It doesn't change the fact that nobody in the game responds to him.
Right. But I mean, I'm saying if they were to let's say they got rid of Gordon Freeman, they would just have us inhabit someone else and not have that character say anything. So why get rid of Gordon Freeman?
Because of the way people react to Gordon. I mean, the crowbar Jesus factor at this point has kind of reached an epic scale. I feel like Gordon's got almost a theological Santa Claus bag on his shoulder now to carry around.
Right, but I bet they could change the setting and take him away from that.
Well, let's talk about changing the setting, because that's another part I've wondered about. I mean, would this have to be a scripted 3D adventure game at this point, or could they take a different design approach? I mean, so people freaked out a little bit because there was stuff in that text file that obviously indicated creating things for, say, quest structures or parties and open world possibilities. Could you approach the design of Half-Life 3 in a radically different way than
of course,
the first game?
I think they absolutely would. Yeah.
Well, how would they do it? What would you look for?
I was actually surprised recently that Eric Wolpaw confirmed that it was not being developed as a VR game. With Valve's preoccupation with VR in the last few years, I was kind of convinced that they were going to do basically what they did with Half-Life 1 and 2 and establish this is how you make this kind of game.
Yes.
With Half-Life 1, they said, okay, this is how you tell a story in a first-person shooter. With Half-Life 2, they said, okay, this is how you do physics puzzles. And physics manipulation of the environment. I expected them to say, okay, Half-Life 3, this is how you do a VR game. Using all of their expertise to kind of set that standard.
I wouldn't doubt that it has VR compatibility. Like the fantasy version of the future where Half-Life 3 exists, I would imagine that game is that to a certain degree.
I'm not sure it is. But I mean, based on what I've seen, like Chet Falazek say about just like he's tweeted about how you can't just slap a first-person shooter into VR and expect a good experience. So I don't think that Valve would do like something that can be played in VR or maybe not.
Yeah.
Because the way you interact with the world and Valve is super into VR these days. The way you interact with a VR world is completely different from the way you interact with a non-VR world. If you're trying to do what Valve does, which is try to do it the best way you can. Like they're completely fixated on establishing a sense of presence, and
and they did very, very well with that with both the Portal and the Dota 2 demos in the HTC Vive demos they made.
Right.
Those are very much about sort of passive soaking in of the environment. And yes, you can engage and tinker with stuff, but it's not about that. It's about Valve creating a space that feels as real as a digital space could possibly feel, and populating with stuff that you want to learn more about.
And the style of gameplay that would exist in that kind of environment is completely different from what would exist in a traditional first-person shooter.
So we're thinking about something investigative and open world type setting, perhaps?
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it could be anything really. I hesitate to predict what Valve might do, but open world using Valve's Lighthouse technology doesn't seem very plausible. Just because it'd be more of a locked room.
Navigation is an issue. Yeah,
more of a locked room scenario.
Well, the way that Epic is doing it with Bullet Train and I feel bad, Starseed. I think it's called Starseed. It's an episodic PC game coming, and it's a Vive game, or it's a game that works or is made for the headset. The way that works is you point your controller somewhere, and using whatever input they have, you create a wireframe box, and then you say go, and it just teleports you there. And that's what Bullet Train does it too. It's like, I want to go there, and it just teleports you there. And now in that space you've allowed yourself to move to, you can engage with stuff in that very confined area.
Right.
And that's how they get around navigation.
Which is it still seems weird to me.
Yeah, it doesn't work in the context of a world where it's like, hey, yes, it's silly in that like an alien group took over a city, but it's not silly enough where you're teleporting and stuff.
Right.
But I think about the winning formula, guys. I think what we really want, what they need to give us, is a free-to-play, endless runner set on Zen, where you're hopping from platform to
everything
platform
I've ever wanted.
with in-app purchases for phones. I think that's what Half-Life 3 confirmed right there.
I don't know, we could never predict what Half-Life 3 will be because Valve is still figuring it out.
And we can't even predict if Half-Life 3 will be.
Yeah, if it's being made.
Yeah.
Because, to Dan's point, every Half-Life game has been radically different than any other entry in the genre, and it has always progressed. And I imagine that's what's been keeping it up, is them trying to push the genre forward and reinvent stuff. That, and Valve hasn't made a single-player experience since 2009.
There's that, too.
They have no interest in it anymore. Everything is hardware and multiplayer and getting gigantic numbers of people playing a single product.
And they're making gobs of money doing it. I mean,
Yes.
I understand that at this point this is a risk-reward proposition for them. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I watched the presidential debate the other night, and I just wanted somebody somebody say something risky, please.
Yeah.
Did you watch it in VR?
No, I didn't.
You can do that.
I did watch it with Moriarty, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But you do want to see somebody that people who took risks and made great things. You want them to take more risks, and I understand we'd all be screaming if the risk didn't work out. But I want them to do it anyway. I'd like to see something beautiful and innovative and compelling again from people I trust to produce something like that.
Yeah, at this point, I wrote about this last year for the 10th anniversary of Half-Life 2. I wrote a thing about how Half-Life 3 doesn't really have a place at Valve anymore, like we were talking about. But at the same time, I feel like it's one of those things that Valve almost owes the community. Like, it is their responsibility to finish what they started.
Especially that damn cliffhanger ending.
Jesus Christ, it's so good. I still, every time I think about it, I get mad at how good they are at storytelling.
And then they just decided to stop telling that story.
Yeah. It's infuriating. I maintain my biggest conspiracy theory is we will wake up one day and Dan is going to be dead from a heart attack because they will have just released Half-Life. You'll wake up and it'll be you'll open Steam and there it is. Yeah,
that would be amazing. I hope that's what they do.
That would literally kill Dan, though.
I hope that's what they do.
They're 100% not doing that.
That'd be amazing. Just amazing. But yeah, they really did just kind of leave us with Locke looking into the hatch and the light coming on and then cutting to black.
Yeah.
It is that kind of cliffhanger.
I do not see a world in which whatever this game is not something that is constantly being updated by a obsessive team that is constantly iterating on what it is.
Yep.
I'm telling you, free to play endless runner
Jared.
set on Zen.
Damn it, Jared.
I guarantee you they've got a dozen different prototypes and where they thought they had a great idea. It's like, it's good but not good enough.
Yeah, they had a lot of that with Portal where they tried different stuff and that's pretty good. That works. Put it aside. I also remember. Did you read Jeff Keighley's? He did that. What is his
Last Days of?
The Final Hours.
Yeah.
He did Final Hours of Portal 2.
Yep.
And there was something he wrote about where it's like Valve had found like another really great gimmick, like the portal gun, like the bouncy gel, like the sliding gel, like that kind of thing, right? Like a way to interact with the environment with a character. And he was like, he outright said, like, I saw it, I can't talk about it, but it is part of whatever their next big thing is. I wonder if we ever saw that. Like, did they stick it in Dota 2 or did they throw it in a Team Fortress update? And we're just like, oh, nobody ever thought about, like, the next big thing that Valve came up with.
It's kept in their pocket. Yeah.
Right, or is that still banked in a prototype somewhere?
They're in a place where they have their income is taken care of. They aren't in a situation where they have to release something.
Yeah.
So they get to sit back and wait until until they blow themselves away, until they're like, oh my God, this is so good, we got to release it.
Must be nice.
Yeah. Yes, it must.
Meanwhile, the rest of us are just aching.
Stop playing all their other fine products.
Too bad there are no other games to play.
Yeah, it's a real shame.